Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Bob Byrne and I'm an attorney who represents people in personal injury and wrongful death claims. I live in and primarily practice law in Virginia, but I'm originally from a really small town in upstate New York. I'm from a small farming community that literally had more cows than people. So my junior year of high school, I got mono and I was out of school for a couple of weeks and basically was bedridden during that time. I watched the William Kennedy Smith criminal trial that was on TV. It was televised from start to finish. And I found it absolutely fascinating, seeing the lawyers question the witnesses, watching the witnesses respond, seeing how the judge interacted with everyone. And it was during that time that I realized this is what I want to do. I want to be a lawyer. After graduating from college, I worked at a large labor and employment law firm, and so I was representing corporations. After doing that for a couple of years, I decided to move to Virginia to attend law school. And that's where I met the woman of my dreams. We met, we fell in love during law school, and then after law school, my wife Lauren and I got married. So I graduated from law school in 2002. And though I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do, I knew one thing very confidently, and that was I would never, ever, ever do plaintiff's personal injury work. And I'll be perfectly honest, I viewed personal injury attorneys as hucksters. I viewed them kind of like the caricature that you see with Saul Goodman, where they're all ambulance chasers and a little bit sleazy. And I was like, absolutely no way am I going to have anything to do with that. And to be perfectly honest, I was deeply suspicious of anyone who claimed to be injured and was seeking money as a result of that. Two things happened that obviously changed my views in a very dramatic way. The first was clerking for a judge right after law school. The judge I was clerking for came from one of the largest corporate law firms in the country, and I thought that's exactly where I want to go. And working for him really opened my eyes to a lot of things. The main thing was he had worked defending personal injury and wrongful death claims in his practice for massive corporations. He talked about many plaintiffs' attorneys who he had competed against, and he recognized them as being not just brilliant attorneys, but also some wonderful people. But he also showed me how many people will have their lives and their families really torn apart where an injury occurs, say such as to the family's breadwinner, or a death occurs, and it could just completely destroy a family and make life miserable for everyone in it. And you know, I had never experienced any of that in my life. I'd lived a pretty charmed existence, and it helped open my eyes to really how other people may have difficulty managing, and then suddenly an injury is thrust upon them and they have all these bills. They're unable to work and things can just spiral out of control. But there was a second thing that happened to me a few years after that that really not just opened my eyes, but changed my heart. I was into my practice of law and things were going beautifully. I had a wonderful wife. We had welcomed our first child. Things were really taking off in my practice. It was going well. I was getting momentum. Things just really felt perfect. But it was at that time that the unimaginable happened. And we experienced tragedy and we lost our firstborn son. There was a horrible accident that occurred when he was just 20 months old. And, you know, up until that point, I can look back and say that I had never really suffered in life. I didn't know what it meant to hurt so badly that you didn't want to live. I didn't know what it meant to be in a position where the only prayer you could say is one word, which is help. I didn't know what it was like to just want to basically get in bed and never get out. And those were awful, awful, awful years. And that was 18 years ago. But the pain is still deep It's still present. It's always there. And it was this, after having my eyes open, I think that I could say that this kind of opened my heart, because through, walking through that valley of the shadow of death, it made me, when you experience something like that, you want to try to find a way that you can use it for good. You want to try to find meaning. You want to try to honor your loved one in a way. And, it was during that time where I was seeking a lot of spiritual guidance and praying, and it just became apparent to me that I needed to really help people, and I could help people in my practice. I could help families who had lost someone. I could help families who had suffered some sort of terrible hardship, and they were trying to rebuild, and they didn't know where to turn, and they were desperate, and they were hurting, and they were angry that they had to hire an attorney in the first place, and they're viciously angry at the other person who caused this, and their marriage is threatened, and their livelihood is threatened, and basically everything that they had built their life around was at risk of being torn apart. When suffering happens, a lot of times it happens so that we can help others. And I kind of took that upon myself to look at this and say, you know what, I want to use this. I know what it's like to suffer, and I can help people who have suffered. And that's something that I've really done. And there's times where I have talked with people who have lost family members, and I've shared resources. I will share Bible verses. I will share thoughts, observations, things I've heard. Because if you have lost a loved one, especially a child, you know that you can immediately connect with someone who has also lost a child. We're a unique fraternity, and we can kind of, we know what that terrible road is like, and we know what all that it entails and how awful it is. But there's a unique connection that exists, and that's something that I do really kind of cherish about working with families who have suffered a loss of that magnitude. So don't get me wrong. My job first and foremost is to get a family or an individual who's been badly hurt compensation, because it's the only justice that our system has. It's all that's entailed. And I think if you look at my track record, you can see that I take that very seriously. We've had some tremendous verdicts, some tremendous settlements, and I think our track record speaks for itself. But I do view my job as being more holistic than just money. I want to help provide courage to people who are going through what ultimately might be the biggest battle of their lives. I want to help them have hope for their future. And I want them to somehow find peace with their situation. I do hope to become a friend by walking through their hell with them and trying to reach the other side with them. So let me just briefly tell you about my practice today. I'm one of approximately 100 attorneys in the country who is board certified in truck accident law. One thing that's a little bit unique about me is that my trial partner happens to be my wife. And it was never our plan that we were going to practice law together. It just kind of has worked out. In addition to working as a litigator and a trial attorney, I do a lot of speaking, and I speak to attorney groups across the country, from Florida to California. And although my work is such a huge part of my identity, the most important role that I play along with my wife is parents of 5 wonderful kids. So at the time of this video, all 5 are still at home. 4 of them are teenagers, and so there's never a dull moment. So just a couple of things to think about with this channel. I really want to focus on the areas of specialty that I have so that I can talk to people about personal injury claims. I can tell people kind of some information that you need to know if you've been in a crash. A lot of my viewers are members of the trucking industry, and I think that they're going to have some harsh views about some of my videos. But I do enjoy that interaction, and ultimately, as I've challenged members of the truck industry before, I do hope that you put me out of business. I don't want these crashes to occur. I'd love to hear from you, especially if you're not an attorney, because ultimately my job is to communicate with non-attorneys and to do so in a way that's clear. But thank you so much. Thanks for coming along on this journey, and stay tuned for more videos.